Hello and welcome. My name's Andy, and my mission is to make garages more successful in business. And how do I do that? I try to go live every week on a subject in what I call one of the 5 pillars of business. This week we're in the financial pillar and we're talking about grants. Don't leave free money on the table. So we're talking about something that could put thousands of pounds back into your garage without adding another bill to your cash flow. We're going to dive into business grants. And grants are one of the least used but most powerful forms of business finance available to independent garages. And by the end of this episode, you should know the difference between grants and other type of finance. And you hear about live grants that you could apply for right now and get practical tips on finding and applying for local funding. Most garages think finance means loans, leases, or dipping into cash reserves. But there is a smarter option. It's business grants. Now, business grants are a smarter option when a garage already knows they need to invest or are about to invest in new kit or make improvements. Because when they do that, if they don't have the funds available, what they normally think of when it comes to borrowing is loans, leasing, or possibly an equity investment, or maybe even tax relief. But there is another option, and it's grants. So first of all, let's talk about why grants are different. So with a loan, you borrow the money and you repay with interest. The advantage of that is they're quick and they're easy. But what's the disadvantage? Obviously, it's the interest, and it's bad for monthly cash flow. But it's good if you haven't got the finances to make those improvements that you need to do right now. So it's the same with leasing or hire purchase. If you're buying some new kit, you can spread the cost of the equipment. It keeps all available cash in hand, but you will pay more overall. You could, another advantage, get some tax relief by using hire purchase. But it's a bit more complicated than that. But generally, a bit like a loan, it's going to cost you more to buy the stuff. So what about equity investment? You sell part of your business in return for some money. These are pretty rare in the garage trade, and you will lose some control over the business. Effectively, you're selling shares in return for money. And tax reliefs, and one of the common ones that people apply for at the moment, are R&D credits or capital allowances. These are useful, but you spend first and then you have to wait months or up to 12 months to get the benefit. Or there's grants. Money you don't need to repay. There is no interest and no equity is lost. But they're usually tied to a project or an outcome, like reducing energy, installing EV chargers, or training apprentices. And why grants are different, and what makes them especially attractive for SMEs and micro businesses like independent garages, is they help protect your cash flow. You upgrade the business without adding any monthly debt. They target the future, so things like energy efficiency, EV infrastructure, digital tools, things that you'll need at some point anyway, or things that you're buying anyway. And they're more accessible than you think. You don't need to be a big business because most are written for small businesses just like yours. I always like to think of it like this. Taking a loan is like filling up your fuel tank on a credit card. But a grant is a bit like your local council saying, here's a contribution to that tank of fuel for free, but you must use it to go somewhere useful. And that's the difference. So we're going to look now at some real grants that you could apply for today, depending on your location, that will sort of bring this subject of grants to life. So the first one we're going to look at is the EV infrastructure grant. And the EV infrastructure grant is for staff and fleets and is a nationwide grant. And what does it cover? Up to 75% of electrical and groundwork costs, that's trenching, cabling and ducting and the like, plus up £350 per charge point socket that you install, up to a maximum of £15,000 per site. What it doesn't cover is works you've already done, unfortunately, customer-only charge points, buying electric vehicles, or any unrelated electrical work. So What's a typical example? Well, if you've got a free bay workshop, and this is some real figures from an example I was involved with. And remember, if you lease the workshop, you need to speak to your landlord first, because there may be implications in putting the building back to its original specification afterwards. And you want to invest in EV charging, and you want to install 3 chargers, 1 in each bay, and an external charge point for staff use. You're trying to encourage your staff to use EVs to come back and forth to work. Remember, you can't install one just for customer charging. You can install one in the repair bay, because that's not for customer charging. So you can't make money from, if you like, hiring the charger out. Now, this business had a groundwork quote of nearly £12,000, and this prevented them from even starting the project. It was way too much money. But if they had applied for the EV infrastructure grant, £9,000 of that cost could be covered, plus another £1,050 off the 3 sockets they wanted to install. And what would have been a £13,500 project end up costing them less than £3,500. And now they're ready for EV customers and in a position to ask local fleets to consider them for their EV ready service offer. And that's the power of grant funding. It reduced the overall bill significantly, making installing EV charge points and having that offer to do EV servicing more affordable. Now, national grants are great, such as the EV infrastructure grant, but some of the best pots of money are local, funded by councils or combined authorities. And these are often aimed at energy efficiency or business growth. For example, right now, as I speak in September 2025, if you're based in Somerset, the Business Decarbonisation Programme is funding insulation, doors and efficient kit. Applications close mid-September. So if you're in Somerset, you need to act fast. So if you were at MOT Centre in Somerset, through the Business Decarbonisation Programme, you could replace your old roller shutter doors and fluorescent tubes with insulated shutters and LED upgrades using a £7,500 grant. Result, a workshop that's warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and a significant reduction in your energy bills. What could you do with that money? Maybe you would employ an apprentice. Who knows? But that's the power of grant funding. These are improvements that you need to make anyway. All you're doing is applying for some funding to help you make it happen. So if you have got really, really dodgy fluorescent tubes or other lighting forms that leave dark spots all around the garage, and you're thinking about doing LED upgrades anyway, why don't you find out if there's a grant similar to this one available in your area? If you've got drafty old doors, why don't you looking at replacing them with insulated doors and seeing if there's a grant available? So another scheme, this time in Nottingham, which is an open business decarbonisation fund. Great for heating, lighting and roller shutters, as we just discussed. But these funds can be used for other equipment too, such as that new variable speed compressor you're just about to purchase. Imagine you could get 40% of the cost covered, cut your energy bill by nearly £2,000 a year, and reduce the noise level in your workshop. Everyone's a winner. If you are going to make a purchase, check to see if there are any grants available. It could stop you from leaving free money on the table. Yes, you have to fill in forms, ensure you meet the criteria, and deal with the bureaucracy, which is probably why so many of us never bother. So these 2 local examples I found with a quick AI search. But councils across the UK are running similar schemes funded by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And the best bit is not many micro or small business ever apply. In fact, most don't even check if there's a grant available before making a significant purchase. Finding and attracting funding is an essential business skill, one which too many of us simply have not taken the time to develop. So here's some tips for finding and applying for business grants. The place to start is with the gov.uk's Find a Grant portal. So if you type that into any of the search engines, it'll come up. I will add a link in the comments below so that you can find it yourself. You can just click it. And this is the official directory. And all you need to do is filter by business and your postcode. And all of the grants available for your business and within your location should come up. However, if they don't, another way of doing it, go to your search engine and search for and insert the name of your council, business grants. Most, if not all, will have decarbonisation or growth schemes going on right now and money available if only you applied. The next step is speak to your growth hub. Every area in England has one, and in Scotland, its equivalent is the Scottish Enterprise and the Highlands and Islands Enterprise. In Wales, it's called Business Wales, and it Invest Northern Ireland for Northern Ireland. Now, you need to speak to somebody at your growth hub. Once you get in touch, they're usually very, very helpful, and they can help you with the application. They can help advise you what grants are available in your area, and they can even come out and do a visit and see where they can help and what you could apply for. Very, very useful. But the top tip, I think, when it comes to grant applications is being what I call application ready. Because most schemes are going to ask for last year's accounts or maybe even a couple of recent bank statements. So have them prepared. 2 quotes for the work or the equipment you're going to purchase. So get quotes in already. They're going to require proof that you are operating out of those premises and possibly photographs of your current setup. So the things that you want to replace, get photographs of the old stuff, and find out what the benefits of the new equipment that you're getting the quotes for are for. Now, what you'll find is any decent sales guy will do that work for you. They'll give you the quotes. They'll give you the benefits of fitting the equipment in terms of decarbonisation, energy efficiency, all of that stuff. They'll be all over it for you. And that helps the process. And the final bit is if you are a little bit rusty when it comes to filling in grant applications, use AI to help. That's what it's for. The next thing I'll say is once you're application ready, apply and apply straight away because the funds are limited. So if you see a deadline that's in 3 months, don't wait 2 months to apply this month. And I always think that keeping it simple always beats any sort of protracted explanations. Focus on one clear project at a time. So if you're doing the compressor state, replace old compressor to save 20% energy cost. Will always beat something very, very specific and drawn out or something very generic like general improvements to the business. Nobody understands what that is. Be specific and be simple. So here's the bottom line with grants. Loans will cost you. Leasing ties you in and costs you. Equity means giving something away. And grants, they're free money to help you do what you was going to do anyway. If you want to modernize, save energy, or get EV ready, don't wait for your competitor to have grant funding plastered across their new workshop doors. Go and look today because the money is there and it's waiting for you to fill out the form. Remember, in business, clear beats clever. And when it comes to funding, obvious is better than clever. And obvious is the right move now. Don't leave money on the table. The obvious move is to apply for a grant. Now, the thing with grants that frustrates people, and I ought to say this as a caveat right at the end, is it's not like a loan, whereas if you don't have the money to do what you're going to do, they're not going to give you all of the money. Most grants will add percentage of the total cost. But if it was something you was going to do and money you was going to spend anyway, don't leave that free money on the table. And probably what's stopping you is starting. And if you should, you must. Hopefully that's helped you with finding out what a grant is, where to find them, and I'll put the link in the comments. And finally, be ready with that application. Use AI to help with the application process and get in touch with that Growth Hub officer because they're there to help. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.